The first shot wasn't fired by the aliens, it was us. And that's why they're afraid. Humanity's last hope had been planted in the heart of a ruined Earth. The once bustling cities, now mere skeletons of their former selves, lay under a sky darkened by smoke and ash. But none of that mattered to Commander Sarah Ashford as she stood at the helm of the dreadnought Judgment. The ship, a relic of Earth's greatest war efforts, was battered, scarred, and barely holding together. It had been built to withstand extinction, and now, it had a new purpose. She stared at the galaxy map flickering before her, the holographic blue dots marking the locations of alien warfleets. Her mission? A direct assault on the Zorathian invasion armada. If humanity stood a chance against the onslaught, it had to be now. "Commander Ashford," said Lieutenant Juno, her voice trembling slightly through the calm. "The enemy fleet has entered our range. They're opening fire." Sarah's gaze hardened. "Do we have the green light?" Juno hesitated, but only for a fraction of a second. "Yes, Commander. The launch window is open. Then we go. Full throttle." Without another word, she moved to the tactical board, her fingers dancing across the touchpad with practiced precision. The Judgment was no longer just a ship. It was a weapon. A single ship was humanity's last message to the galaxy: don't underestimate us. Outside the bridge, chaos was unfolding. The vast, metal-wrought hull of the Judgment tore through the shattered atmosphere of Earth, rocketing toward the massive alien dreadnought that hung like a specter in the black void. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity's resolve. They thought Earth was a lost cause, a dead world too weak to fight back. They were wrong. The first volley from the Zorathian ship hit, shaking the Judgment like a toy in the hands of a child. The sensors went haywire, alarms blaring as debris scattered across the hull. It was just a taste, a warning shot meant to instill fear. But it had the opposite effect. The crew went silent, focusing on their stations, while Sarah Ashford's eyes narrowed with cold fury. "All guns, fire at will," she commanded, her voice slicing through the static like a razor. The Judgment's weapons roared to life, sending a barrage of energy blasts into the heart of the Zorathian fleet. The alien ships, sleek and intimidating, had no idea what they were up against. Sarah's eyes watched with calculated calm as their shields flickered under the intense pressure of humanity's last-ditch assault. Then came the voice, cold and distant, crackling through the bridge comms. "This is General Thrax of the Zorathian Dominion. You have no chance, Earthling. Your world is already condemned." Sarah leaned forward, her fingers gripping the console with a force that made the metal groan. "Thrax," she said, her voice deadly calm, "you don't get to decide that." With a flick of her wrist, the tactical screen shifted. The Judgment had closed the gap between them, now within range for the final move. Sarah's fingers moved swiftly across the command interface, activating the Judgment's secret weapon, the Genesis Strike. It was a weapon built with one goal in mind: to make a statement. The Genesis Strike was more than just an attack. It was a final defiance, a weapon that would shake the very foundations of the Zorathian Empire. Humanity had been pushed to the edge, but they had one thing left: the power to surprise. "Launch in 5, 4, 3. Sarah counted down. The ship shuddered as the Genesis Strike was unleashed. A brilliant, blinding flash erupted from the Judgment, cutting through the void like a divine wrath. The Zorathian fleet had no time to react as the energy surge tore through their shields, igniting their warships in violent explosions. It was a strike unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, and the Zorathians felt it. A resounding roar of devastation echoed across the comms before they cut out completely. "Impact confirmed," Juno reported, her voice filled with awe. "They're retreating, Commander. The Zorathian fleet is retreating." But Sarah knew better than to celebrate. "It's not over. Not yet." As the crew processed the impossible victory, Sarah turned her attention back to the remnants of Earth. It had cost them everything. Cities were gone, resources drained, and millions of lives lost. And still, the fight was not over. This was merely the beginning. There were still forces out there in the galaxy, unknown, waiting to take Earth's downfall as a cue. "Prepare the judgment for the next phase," Sarah ordered. "We need to find the real enemy. This was just the opening act." She walked to the viewport, looking out at the endless black of space. The stars shone coldly, distant and indifferent, as though unaware of the cataclysm that was unfolding in their shadow. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, feeling the weight of her duty. Her mind raced. The Zorathians were just one piece of the puzzle. Someone had set them on Earth, had prodded them into attacking a world already on the brink of annihilation. But why? Who stood to gain from humanity's destruction? "Commander," Juno's voice interrupted her thoughts, pulling her back to the present. "We've intercepted a Zorathian transmission. It's a warning. They know about the Genesis strike. They're sending reinforcements, more than we can handle." Sarah clenched her fists. "Then we move faster. Whatever's out there, we find it first." The battle for Earth had just begun. The Zorathians were only a small part of a much larger war. And in this war, humanity would no longer be the prey. We were the hunters now. Cliffhanger ending asterisk. As Sarah stared out into the void, her heart hammered in her chest. The transmission had been clear. The Zorathians were no longer the biggest threat. A new force was rising, and it had its sights set on Earth. "Get us to the edge of the system," Sarah ordered. "We need answers, and we need them now." The judgment sailed through the remnants of the Zorathian fleet like a specter, its once vibrant hull now marred by battle scars. Earth's atmosphere had left it battered, but it was still the mightiest weapon humanity had left. The stars outside the viewport flickered coldly as the crew settled into a grim silence, every mind on the same inevitable conclusion: the war had escalated far beyond what they had imagined. Sarah Ashford stood at the center of the bridge, her hands gripping the command console with an unyielding resolve. The victory had been a temporary one. A mere flash of hope in the face of impending doom. "Commander, we're getting incoming transmissions," Juno reported, her voice tinged with urgency. "It's not from the Zorathians." Sarah's heart skipped. "From who, then?" "Unknown. It's encrypted. Patch it through." The lights in the bridge dimmed as the transmission flickered onto the main screen. The image of a figure cloaked in shadow appeared, a voice distorted by layers of static. It was clear enough, though, to send a chill down Sarah's spine. "Commander Ashford," the voice rasped, dripping with disdain. "You've won your battle, but you've already lost the war. The Zorathians are not your true enemy. We are. And we're coming." The message cut off before Sarah could respond. The room seemed to shrink, the walls pressing in as her mind raced. Who were they? And why were they so sure of their victory? Juno's voice snapped her from the spiral of thoughts. "Commander, we've detected multiple unknown signatures near the outskirts of the system. They're closing in fast, too fast. Shields up, weapons hot," Sarah barked, snapping into battle mode. "Get us to the rendezvous point. Now." The judgment lurched forward, the engines roaring to life as it shot toward the system's edge. Sarah's mind raced as she took her seat, her eyes flickering from monitor to monitor, each one flashing with cryptic data she couldn't yet make sense of. The transmission had been clear, but it had raised more questions than answers. "Any chance this is a mistake?" Juno asked, her voice shaky. "That the Zorathians left something behind, maybe a rogue ship or—" "No," Sarah interrupted, her voice ice-cold. "This is a new enemy. We're not facing just another invader, Juno. We're facing something much worse. They're organized, calculated, and they already know everything about us." Her thoughts turned inward. The Genesis strike had been their last card, their only chance at a comeback, and now it had brought more danger than ever. Whoever these new enemies were, they had intelligence, real intelligence. They knew exactly where to hit humanity to cause the most damage, and they weren't afraid to make it personal. The ship's sensors pinged, and an ominous glow appeared on the horizon of the ship's exterior viewport. Sarah's heart hammered against her chest as she saw the distant silhouettes of enemy ships. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. "Prepare for impact," she shouted, though it wasn't enough to calm the terror creeping into her chest. The enemy's ships, sleek, dark, and unearthly in their design, loomed ahead like predators on the prowl. Each vessel appeared to be a fortress, sleek in design but ominously deadly in appearance. As the Judgment sailed toward them, Sarah's fingers hovered over the launch controls. There was no hesitation now. "Launch all drones, set intercept mode. And bring the weapons online. We're not backing down." A volley of laser fire lanced toward them from the alien ships, shattering the stillness of space. Sarah's face tightened as she braced for the impact, the Judgment shuddering under the assault. "We can't take much more of this," Juno warned. "Shields are down to 50%. Just get us closer." Sarah gritted through her teeth. "We need to engage them at close range." It was an insane move. But after everything they'd been through, after all the losses humanity had suffered, what was the point in holding back anymore? The Judgment surged forward, engines burning with desperate intensity. The alien ships retaliated with brutal precision, firing with unrelenting force. But Sarah Ashford had spent her entire career preparing for moments like this. Her hand was steady, eyes cold with determination. The enemy would not have the satisfaction of seeing fear in her eyes. "Not today. We're within range," Juno reported, tension crackling in her voice. "Shall we fire?" "No," Sarah said, her eyes narrowing. "Not yet." The Judgment shifted its course, maneuvering around the enemy's ships with an unexpected agility, weaving through enemy fire like a dancer avoiding death. The drones launched from the belly of the ship, swarming toward the oncoming fleet like a deadly swarm of hornets. The precision was flawless. The drones struck fast and hard, carving through the hulls of the alien ships. The enemy shields flickered, then sparked, then vanished. For a brief moment, it seemed as if they might actually win this round. But then it happened. A deafening sound reverberated throughout the ship as the Judgment took a direct hit. The bridge shook violently, knocking crew members to the ground. Sparks flew, alarms blared. The view outside the ship showed a massive breach in the side of the hull, air venting into the void of space. "Casualties reported on Deck 4. Juno shouted. "Shields are at 30%. We can't hold them off forever," Sarah muttered. "Get us out of here." But it was too late. The enemy's ships were closing in, surrounding them on all sides. This wasn't a fight they could win, not without reinforcements, not without a plan. The battle raged on, but in Sarah's mind, a new understanding dawned. The enemy wasn't just coming for Earth, they were coming for humanity. And they wouldn't stop until every last human was erased from the stars. Cliffhanger ending *. A cold voice filled the bridge once more, this time from the ship's intercom. "This is General Kale. You are all that remains of a dying species. Surrender, and we will make your extinction swift." "Never," Sarah spat, her eyes locked onto the encroaching fleet. "We fight until the last breath." The Judgment groaned under the strain as Sarah Ashford gripped the armrests of her command chair. The entire ship seemed to tremble from the relentless barrage, yet her mind remained laser-focused on one singular thought: survival. If humanity was to make it through this, they needed to fight smarter, not harder. "We're running out of time, Commander." Juno's voice cracked through the chaos, barely audible over the constant alarms blaring. "The enemy fleet is closing in. We have less than 5 minutes before we're overwhelmed." Sarah glanced at the strategic map flashing across the bridge. There were too many of them. The sleek enemy ships surrounded the Judgment like a deadly web, ready to pull them apart. Each alien vessel loomed like a dark giant, its weapons primed and ready. The Judgment, despite its superior firepower, was limping, damaged, exhausted, and on the verge of collapse. "We need a way out," Sarah muttered, her eyes scanning the data. "If we can't outrun them, we need to break their lines, hit them where it hurts." She snapped her fingers, and Juno quickly input a series of commands. "Commander, there's a gravitational anomaly on the outer rim of the system," Juno said, pointing to a blip on the screen. "If we fly through it, we might be able to shake off the pursuit, but it's risky." The anomaly could tear us apart if we don't handle it exactly right. Sarah's gaze hardened as she weighed the decision. A reckless gamble. But it was their only shot. She made up her mind in an instant. Prepare the ship. Full speed ahead, she commanded. We're going in. The crew braced themselves as the Judgment lurched forward, engines sputtering but roaring to life with the last of their power. The gravitational anomaly loomed larger in the viewport, an invisible storm of warp space, a perfect chaos of gravity and energy. The ship shot toward it like a bullet, engines firing with everything they had left. As they neared the edge of the anomaly, the Judgment bucked and shuddered, a violent tremor running through its spine. Hold on! Sarah shouted, her voice firm but shaken. The ship groaned as it entered the gravitational pull, the entire vessel vibrating from the immense forces at play. Steady, steady, Sarah murmured, watching the controls with bated breath. The ship's systems flickered, teetering on the brink of failure. Commander! Juno screamed. We're too close. If we don't pull up now, the ship will be torn apart. There was no time to second guess. Sarah slammed her hand down on the console, forcing the ship into a sudden jolt. The Judgment veered to the side, slicing through the anomaly with a deafening shudder. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Then, the ship jolted violently, tearing through the space-time distortion like a ship breaking through a storm. For a terrifying moment, Sarah thought they had failed. The Judgment was caught, tumbling uncontrollably through the anomaly. But then, the universe seemed to calm, just for a second. The ship lurched again, its artificial gravity system grinding under the strain. We're out! Juno gasped, her hands flying over the console in a blur of motion. The shaking of the ship began to subside as the anomaly released its grip. The view outside the viewport had changed. The enemy ships that had once surrounded them were now a distant memory. They had been left behind in the chaos of the gravitational field. We did it, Juno whispered in disbelief. We're alive. Sarah didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were still fixed on the viewport. It was hard to believe, but they had done it. They had escaped. Not yet, she said, her voice cold, determined. We're not out of the woods yet. I want full scans of the system. If we've shaken them, we need to know where we stand. Scanning now, Juno confirmed, her fingers dancing over the controls. I'm detecting a large energy signature ahead. It's not Zorathian, something else. Bring it up. The screen flickered again, and Sarah's eyes narrowed as the image of an enormous, alien ship appeared. It was massive, far larger than the Zorathian dreadnoughts, and unlike anything they had ever seen. It was sleek, almost biomechanical in design, and it pulsed with energy. They knew we'd escape, Sarah muttered under her breath, her mind clicking into place. This wasn't a fight to destroy us. It was a trap. They wanted us to fall into that anomaly. Juno looked up, alarmed. You mean this ship? It was waiting for us? Yes, Sarah said, her voice heavy with realization. This is the real enemy, the one that's been pulling the strings. We just stumbled into their trap, and now they're here to finish us off. The communications officer, Lieutenant Riva, suddenly spoke up. Commander, we've just intercepted a message from the enemy ship. It's a direct transmission, coming through all channels. Sarah walked over to the communication station. She felt the weight of the moment pressing in on her chest. There was no running now. Play it. The screen flickered and the voice that came through was unmistakable, a cruel, calculating tone. Commander Ashford, the voice said, its chilling calm almost mocking. Did you think you could outrun us? The Zorathians were merely the beginning. We are the convergence. And you are nothing but the next stage in our evolution. Surrender, and we may allow you a quick death. Sarah's jaw clenched. The message was clear. They were about to face their worst nightmare. You heard the message, Sarah said, turning back to the crew. We fight, and we make them regret ever underestimating humanity. We can't take that ship head on, Juno said, her voice filled with tension. We need a plan, Commander. Sarah nodded. We're not going to fight them. Not yet. We're going to survive. We'll take them by surprise, use the terrain, use every trick we've learned. If they want us dead, they'll have to come for us. She turned to the crew, a fire in her eyes. We've made it this far. Now we take the fight to them. The judgment powered up, weapons primed, ready for whatever came next. The crew was with her. Humanity's fight was far from over. The Convergents had no idea what they had just awoken. And they wouldn't know until it was too late. Cliffhanger ending *. The massive Convergence ship loomed ahead, its pulsing lights casting an eerie glow across the black void. The Judgment had no choice but to charge forward into the heart of it, ready for a battle that would define humanity's future. Sarah stood tall, unwavering, as the enemy's ship drew closer. This was it, the final stand.